everyone, thank you so much for watching my first weekly video. It was great to know that so many people found it useful. Thank you for getting in touch to let me know that, and also for the likes. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Also, thank you for people who got in contact with suggestions for the topics for my future videos. Unfortunately, one of the topics which people got in contact asked me a lot about were tips for preparing for GCSE Resits. Obviously, with the results that are out in August, some people didn't necessarily get the grades that they were hoping for, needed to go on to do different courses or A-level maths, etc. So this video is really about helping people prepare for those GCSE Resits and hopefully preparing you to ace them and get the grades that you want in November or even in June next year or even June the following year, depending on your current position. The first thing I would recommend that all students that are resitting should do is to find out what their actual mark was. So in August, when you got your results, you would have got a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper there should be your grade, but also what mark you got overall. If you're not sure, get in contact with the exams officer or the maths teacher that you had in school, and they should be able to advise you and tell you what your actual mark was. Now, that mark's going to be really, really important because that means that you can sort of look up the grade boundaries, and they'll be in the description below, and check how close you were to your desired grade. So for instance, if you wanted a grade 4, how many marks away were you from a grade 4? If you wanted a grade 7 and you're resitting, how many marks you're away from a grade 7? So that's going to be really important to really let you know what your current position is, because your current position will determine how you're going to approach succeeding and acing and getting the grade that you want. If, for instance, you wanted that grade 4 and you got a grade 3, then November is definitely your shot of getting that and getting it quite quickly and hopefully out of the way so you can concentrate on your other A levels or other courses or whatever you're studying for. If, for instance, you wanted a grade 4 and you were on a grade 2, it might be that you might need to sort of really focus on June of 2019, so sort of take a year-long approach to it and really work hard and with the right determination and effort and the right support, give you every chance of getting that grade 4. If, for instance, you got a grade 1 or a grade 2, it might be that your teachers might suggest, other exams which might be sort of more suitable depending on what you got and your background and them knowing you. Or it might be that a 2-year approach, might be more suitable to you to get that grade 4. But really sort of think about what your mark is and how close you're away from that grade above or that sort of desired grade, and think, which resit might be more suitable for you. Okay, another thing I would suggest is also just double check and see how many marks you're away. If you're only 1, 2, 3 or 4 marks away from the grade that you wanted, I would sort of maybe speak to the exams officer or the maths teachers in your school and check and see if they've already put it in to be remarked. I think they should actually check that if you're ready, but yeah, sort of if you're only a few marks, 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be sort of from my experience, sort of a suitable number of marks sort of to go up or to have a chance of going up, a small chance of going up to that grade above. But if you're only 1, 2, 3 marks, 1, 2, 3, 4 marks away from that grade above, or from your desired grade, maybe consider remark. Now, there is a chance that it could go down, but if you're so high up and so close to the grade above, they shouldn't drop down so many marks to bring you to the grade below, so I wouldn't really worry about that. But there's a small chance that that mark could come back and sort of, they could remark it and say, you've actually got that grade 4, and then you wouldn't need to do that resit, which would be fantastic. Now, if you do choose to send it off to get a remark, what I would recommend is that you send it off and you just focus on still preparing for November, because it might take a week or 2 to come back, and you don't want to lose any study or preparation time. So sort of send it off to be remarked and then just think, I'm still going to be doing that resit in November until you hear otherwise. So let's focus on the students that are preparing for their resit in November then, okay? So first of all, time is of the essence. You've only got 2 months really to prepare. You've got September and October, and the exams are towards the beginning of November, so you've only got 2 months to prepare. So what you need to do is you need to start working hard now. And what I mean by that is make sure you go into the lessons. So if you are in school or college, they should have lessons for you, and they should have started, by now already. And if not, get in contact with them and talk about that. And make sure you go into those lessons and ask if there's any extra lessons that you can go to. So that's one thing I would make sure that you're doing. You're going to those lessons right away. Next thing I would say is prepare strategically. Whenever you do your GCSE Maths exams, not only is your mark available, but depending on your exam boards or so on, you should be able to find out how many marks you got on each question. So if you speak really nicely to your maths teacher or your exams officer, they should be able to log on, or they might be able to log on, depending on the exam board. I know, for instance, in Edexcel, I was always able to do this with students, and what they could in theory be able to do is to print off paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3, and write down beside each question how many marks you got on each of those questions, which will really help you out in terms of preparing strategically, because you've only got 2 months to go. If you know what topics you done well in those GCSE exams and which ones you didn't do so well in, you've really got something to focus on. And that might be possible. It might not be, but speak to the exams officer, speak to your maths teacher, maybe even ring up the exam board. I don't know, but you might be able to do that, and that might be really useful for you. I've mentioned working strategically. The next thing I'd recommend you do is go to the description in this video and go to either the GCSE Higher or GCSE Foundation checklists. Those checklists have all the topics that are covered in those exams, and they have all the video tutorials for them on Corbettmaths. So what I would then say is get those checklists and cross off the topics, or you can check on the video what the topic is. So check the topic. Then either if you're really confident in it, absolutely certain that you can do it, cross it off. And then the ones that you aren't sort of certain on yet, leave those blank. And then that becomes the topics that you really need to work on within the next 2 months. So to do that, you can watch the video tutorials on Corbettmaths. You can try the practice questions, check your answers. Speak to your teacher about it and say, can you do lessons or help me go through these? Check over revision guides, use the Corbettmaths revision cards. So there's lots of different things you can do, but those would be the key topics to work on, sort of to really focus on, because we've only 2 months to go. Rather than sort of spending time on the topics that you know and that you're confident in already, really try and focus on the ones where you might be able to pick up more marks in that exam on. Okay, next, the 5-a-day. Because there's 2 months to go, I'd be starting those 5-a-days immediately. If you're aiming for that grade 4, you should be doing the numeracy and the foundation 5-a-day, and also having a decent attempt at the foundation +1 and trying to get as many of those questions right as you can. The answers are there to check as well, so if you go on the Corbettmaths website, go to the 5-a-days for the 9-to-1 GCSE and do the numeracy foundation and the foundation plus 5-a-days. And I know that's 15 questions a day, but if you can get this grade 4 past this sort of GCSE Maths, it'll just get it out of the way and give you so much more free time to work on other subjects. Okay, so that would be what I'd be recommending. If you're aiming for something higher, perhaps a grade 5, you'd be working on the foundation plus a lot of the time. If you're aiming for a grade 6 or grade 7, be working on those higher, or grade 8 or 9, those higher plus. Okay, so the 5-a-days. So we've got the video tutorials, the 5-a-days, the checklists. Other things that you should be working on are just really making sure that you're working really hard in your lessons. So go into them. I know it could be quite tricky going to those lessons. Like a lot of your friends will have finished with their maths. There'll be people that you don't know in those lessons. But it's really important that you do go to them, because that's your input really from your teacher, where they can be really helping you out. And perhaps, who knows, this teacher might be the one for you and might really help you get those topics that you've struggled on and help you get the grade that you want. Okay, there's 2 more things I'm going to talk about before sort of moving away from maths. The first thing I'm going to mention is past papers. I would avoid sort of getting stuck into past papers right away, because obviously you didn't get the grade that you wanted. There's some gaps in knowledge that you need to really work on. So what I'd be recommending is that at least for the next month that you're working really, really, really hard to sort of try and plug those gaps and make sure that you sort of can brush up on the topics that you've struggled on, perhaps even with that sort of list of what marks you got on each question in the GCSE exam. That might really help out for helping you know which topics to focus on. But I would say past papers, leave them until sort of October, because you do need that time to really work hard on the maths. And then in terms of past papers, in October, do as many as you can. I know it's a limited amount of time, but try and do as many as you can, particularly the 9-to-1 papers that have happened. The second thing I'm going to mention is I've been asked already whether a student who's done GCSE Foundation and didn't get the grade that they wanted, a grade 4, whether they should do higher, because they might find it easier to get sort of less marks. The grade boundaries are much lower for higher. In the old GCSE, I would have said that would be sort of like a good question. It would have been sort of with higher foundation, trying to get that grade C, which paper, would be best. With the new GCSE, what I would say is that the higher paper is much, much, much harder. And there's a lot of topics which are on that paper which aren't included on the foundation curriculum. And with only 2 months to go, I would say that sort of it's too much of an ask to move up to that higher paper. And also the exam boards have said, I've been to conferences where the exam boards, head of, I think it was AQA, was saying, he would much rather students do the exams that they have prepared for that are suitable for their level of ability and so on. So rather than sort of doing an exam where they might only get a couple of questions right, really sort of being able to do an exam where they can grasp more of the mathematical topics. So the exam boards don't really want students to be doing papers where they've only prepared, trying to get 20% of the topics by knowing a quarter of them. So really what I'd be saying is, if you've done foundation and the exam's in November, my advice would be stick with foundation, just work. You've only got 2 months. Try not to spend your time thinking higher foundation. My advice would be get stuck in, work hard, try and do the best you can on that foundation exam. Okay, so we've talked a lot about preparing mathematically for November. Let's talk a bit about emotionally and getting ready emotionally for November. I was quite lucky mathematically in school. Through primary school, maths was always my favourite subject. I was always getting top of the class in maths. Secondary school, I was always in the top sort of 1, 2, 3 in secondary school, and I was always quite competitive, and I loved maths, and it was my forte, so I worked really hard on it, and I sort of done really well. GCSEs went well, A-levels went well. I done A-level maths and further maths, and then whenever I went to university, my first year of university, because I'd done A-level further maths, my first year of my degree was sort of covered a lot by the material that I've already studied at sort of A-level further maths level. Whenever I got the second year of university, I sort of got a bit complacent. I sort of had cruised through first year of uni, and I started doing my second year, went to sort of all the lectures, but I sort of didn't really work really hard. And whenever I'd done my summer exams in my second year of uni, I actually failed one of them, which sort of it was hard for me to actually accept it, or to believe that I actually had failed a maths exam. I suppose I really knew, because whenever I'd done the exam, you sort of go through and count up your marks, and I'd only attempted sort of about half of the questions, and you needed 40% to pass this exam. So I sort of knew I had failed it, really leaving the hall. I kind of hoped for a miracle, and unfortunately, whenever I got the results, I didn't quite get the 40% that I needed to pass that exam. I passed the other ones. It was just this one unit, which was something which I didn't really work hard for and to enjoy. And then sort of like I knew I had to do the resit, and the resit was about 2 months away from whenever I got my results. So first of all, I missed a holiday. All my friends that I planned to go on holiday with went on a holiday, and I had to stay at home and actually prepare and do the exam while they were on holiday. So it was a bit sort of disappointing that way. And I suppose for a lot of you, it's that sort of, a lot of your friends have finished with maths and you still have to go and do the lessons, and that sort of is, can be disappointing as well. Another thing was, it was sort of a little bit embarrassing. Like I was doing a maths degree. I sort of love maths. I sort of felt I'd sort of let my parents down in a way, because like they sort of like always believed in me, and sort of actually having to tell them I've failed in my maths, and especially my dad. I sort of spoke to him about it, and it was sort of I thought that sort of, he would be sort of really disappointed, but actually, he was sort of just proud of how, hard I'd worked in my maths previously and how far I'd come. And he actually believed in me and sort of said, like, I know you can do this. And so it was actually good to talk to him about failing, and sort of talking to him about not getting the grade that I wanted, and sort of get that sort of reassurance that I hadn't let anyone down, and that actually, he believed in me. And it was sort of quite nice to actually know, actually, if I work hard and get this, that sort of, I can sort of redeem myself, and it was actually sort of quite good speaking to him about it, and it sort of took off a bit of the pressure. Now, there was still some pressure on, because I think this resit was only available once, and if I didn't pass it the second time, when you do a degree, you can lose, is it the honours sort of bit of it, and that sort of would sort of, there was a bit of pressure on, but it sort of then sort of spurred me on to work even harder, and it ended up that I worked really hard, and I got that sort of, past it. And then my final year, I knew that I had to work really hard then, and I actually got a 2-1, which is sort of the second highest degree that you can get. So, it's sort of like, everyone will fail at something at some point. I failed my driving lesson the first time too, and driving test first time too, but I'm not going to get into that now. But there will be something that people fail at, and unfortunately, you may have not got the desired grade that you wanted, but actually, if you work hard and if you sort of believe and maybe speak to people around you, speak to your parents, it's maybe nice to know that they don't feel that you've disappointed them or anything, or them to speak to you and sort of say that they believe in you and things like that. They can really sort of help your mindset, sort of help you sort of believe in yourself. So what I would say is, one, seek help. And what I mean by that is from your friends, from your family, but also from your maths teachers as well. And the second thing is, be proud of the effort that you've put in. As my dad said, he didn't mind that, if it didn't pass, as long as it put in the effort. And that's something which is, whether it's a maths exam or your driving test or work, if you can be proud of the effort you put in, that's really important. Okay, so believe in yourself. You're watching this video. By watching this video, you're sort of taking the first step, sort of preparing yourself for, for those resits in November. So believe in yourself. You're taking those first steps, and then really get stuck in and sort of try and take some of the advice. The advice that I'm giving in this video is from experience of working with sort of students and seeing the ones that have gone on to be successful and what they've done. So I really hope that's been useful for you. If you're doing the resits in June, nearly everything that I've said in this video is applicable to you as well. Maybe not the time scales and the pressure that way, but in terms of, the going to lessons, the resources, the speaking to people, believing in yourself, those things, they will all sort of help you as well. But guys, I hope you found this useful. If you have found it useful, please let me know. It's sort of, it's nice to know that it's been useful, or like, or whatever. If you have got any suggestions for what you want me to cover next week in terms of, whether it's a topic that you want me to work on or talk about or anything else, just feel free to get in contact as well. Thanks very much, guys. All the best for your studies over the next 2 months. It will be hard work, but I believe in you. I know that you can do it. If you need any help, ask me as well. Get in contact. Okay, all the best. Bye-bye.